Okay, we can start. In the last session, we are talking about this manual testing concepts, right? Yeah. So initially, we will cover all the manual testing concepts. Then we'll go to core Java, and then we'll go to Selenium, and we will implement a live project. So that's our process. And as part of manual testing, we are just talking about the software development life cycle, right? Every team, they will be having their own life cycle as part of that. First of all, let us talk about the software development life cycle. Within this development life cycle, there will be another cycle called STLC, software testing life cycle, where the QA team will follow the process. So at the moment, we are talking about a development life cycle. Okay, once we are done with the development life cycle, we'll move on to testing life cycle. So, the previous session, we already discussed about this requirement document specification and the uh, business requirement document and software requirement. So we call it as software requirement specification or just software requirement. That's all. So we'll call it as SRT, software requirement no, specification document. So here, this document, how it will be, your software architect level people will take the business requirement which has been given by the domain experts or subject matter experts, and that will be converted into a software requirement specification document. And instead of talking theoretically, and instead of having some kind of assumptions, please take a look at this diagram. This is what you call it as a software requirement specification document, right? So the business requirement document, it will not talk about any screenshots, nothing, whereas the software requirement document will exactly talk about the software components. So here I have shown you earlier, this is the content list. Like in that particular application, they are going to have these many modules, and each module is going to have some sections, and it was clearly explained here. And this is the data flow. Guys, you need not understand what is this document is. This is a software application where the people are building it, right? And this is their own application, and we are not going to work in this application, and you need not understand what is this flowchart is, and what is this client engagement, all these things. It's purely their application, and this is their business. You guys need not understand this, only for your clarity. So I'm talking by showing this diagram, I'm telling you that there will be a document called software requirement specification document, then how can you realize it? How can you correlate? How do you know that in real time how it will be? So I'm just showing you this is how the software requirement specification document will be. Right. I will take one particular page and we will read that page and exactly what they will write in a software requirement specification document. Okay, I'll take one page where it will be easy for you to understand. Yes. Here, in this page, see system and associated project roles. So here, the architect team, they were describing one particular flow. If there is any website or if there is an application, there will be certain people like, login users. Okay. So they are asking this many types of users. One person, they need global admin. So global admin, usually he will be having all the access. Something, for example, we have ICICIbank.com website. So in this ICICIbank.com website, there will be different users with different permissions. You, as a registered user, you will log in and you will have certain level of, permissions. You can only check your details, your account details, and you can't go to the other details. And if there is a normal bank employee, he will have certain privileges, right? He can check your details also. And there will be another user like a bank manager. So what he can do is he can just go into your account and without your permission he can do some manipulations on your account. Of course, that is not legally allowed, but the bank definitely will have that authority. Meaning here we can have multiple roles. So in this software requirement document, that will be clearly explained. So they were asking like, see, a global admin is required and what a global admin can do, and an internal user is required, and he is having the privileges like a writer and reader privileges, and what he really do. The role internal user provides access to login into the system but provides no access to project data by itself. A user must be assigned a project role such as UI writer or reader. So what they need for the internal user, they are describing here. Now, you as a software developer, you have to read this and you have to understand. And when you are creating the login users, okay, there will be a table for users and the roles that you are giving to the user. So based on this document, you will read it strictly and accordingly you will create the user roles and you will assign the privileges. And they need external user, they need engagement admin, they need maintenance admin, they need PDI manager. So these are the roles that they need and privileges they have to give. They clearly explain here. Right now, what the developer will take this document and this table as an input, and he will write. And then what a tester has to do, what a QA has to do, he has to take the same document and then he need to write some test cases. Then he will take an Excel sheet and he will write the user and the permissions required. Okay, like that he will prepare his own Excel sheet and he will be getting ready with the test cases. So the same document will be taken as an input by the testing team and by the development team. So this is your software requirement specification document. So not only this kind of tables they will provide, they even will give you some kind of mockups. Even I told you, right? So once this roles and entitlements, once this document is done, and as you keep on scrolling down, of course, you guys have to read this document clearly. Meaning, in your team, you will have your own software requirement specification. You guys have to read your specification clearly, right? And I've shown you. So this is how the requirement specification will give you a wireframe. So we usually call it as a wireframe or a screenshot. Okay, and there will be some tools for the people who will be preparing this document. By using those tools, they will implement this one. What is this one? Your requirement again. And now the UX developer, the UI developer who is going to develop this first home screen for this application, he will go through this document and there is no confusion, right? They clearly told you how the logo of the company should be printed. So EY is the company name. So EY and some logo is there. He clearly mentioned here. Then the software development team, they will be following the same thing and they will design the UI screens, and they'll start implementing. Okay, and there they have to provide a login screen and so on. So they were clearly mentioning here. So you will follow this, right? You don't have any confusion and no ambiguities. If you have any missing clarity, then you will reach out to the team who prepared this document and you'll get it clarified. See, they told this UI screen should be there, and each and every module in the screen they were asking you to explain. So that see, first project team. So this is one module on the screen. So how this will be and what needs to be there. So project team list, whatever is required, and each section they were clearly describing. So you will be reading this part and you will get some idea how this application has to be implemented, right? That's how your software requirement specification stage will be, right? See, in this, we as a software team, we started our journey and we already crossed two stages. So once we cross the second stage, what is the second stage? Business requirement specification document. Now, the output of your second stage is your SRD, right? And at this level, uh, some more details will be decided, right? What kind of application you're going to develop? Is that a web application? Is that a mobile application? Is that a standalone desktop application? Kind of things, right? And what is the technology that you guys would use? Like your what is your front end? What is your back end? What is your database? These kind of details also has to be decided, right? And then we will come into the original software development, that we call it as high level design or low level design. So what they do at high level design means they will split the application into individual modules as per the document only. And technically speaking, there will be some frameworks, right? If you're going with Java as your technology, and you will be using some Java, maybe like there are something called the Spring and Hibernate concepts and something called Spring Boot, and those kind of frameworks has to be implemented. Now the technical team will decide for each module, so what are the frameworks they're going to use and how the modules have to be implemented. And if there will be something called reusable components, utility classes will be there, meaning at high level, the architect level people will build those kind of things, and then it will be handed over to the lower level design where the original software team will be there, like the junior folks. So there they will really write the code. So the architect level people, they will just write some interfaces, and that will be handed over to the junior level people, and they start writing the code. For example, the login function has to be written. Who will write that login function? Definitely the core Java developer who is a junior engineer, right? They will just architect the system, right? They will decide how many modules should be there, what could be the framework they have to use, right? These kind of things they will decide. And what is the source control they have to use. Let me say, nowadays we are hearing about Bitbucket. If not Bitbucket, something else. So those kind of things will be decided by them, and it will be handed over to the junior folks. Then that low level design will start. And each module, let me say login is a module. In login again there will be sections, right? So in login screen, how many ways of login? Nowadays there are so many. So login with your mobile number, login with your Google account, login with your Facebook account, right? A login with a password, login with an OTP. Like that, there will be again so many sections, right? So that design will be given to them, to uh, the developer, and all these things has to be implemented by this guy, right? So the original code will be written at the low level, as per the low level design document. At high level, they will mention just we need a login module. But coming to the low level design, uh, inside the login module, how many things are there, right? For example, I'm telling you login, it will be best, example, and you can clearly understand what will be there in the low level design. In the low level design, if you take login as an example, how many ways of logins are there? So login with the normal username, password, login with your mobile number, login with your Google account, Facebook account, right? And there are nowadays there are some applications where dynamically they are giving you a OTP, even though you have a password. Somebody else may have your password with them, and if you don't want to go with a normal password and you're going with the OTP, right? So whenever you give your mobile number or whenever you give your email address, you're getting a OTP and dynamically you're logging into the system, right? So those kind of granular level details will be there in the LLD document. Now the developer will take the LLD document as an input. He will start writing the development code. The original login code will be written by the developer, right? Then once this low-level design document is implemented, the next stage will be started. That is the real coding stage. That is the real coding stage. So far, if you see the first three stages, your BRD, business requirement document or business requirement specification, right? The output of the first stage is BRD. Here in this development model that what you're seeing, the process will be at every stage, there will be a review process will be conducted. At every stage, there will be a review process will be conducted, and the document, if you have written the document, somebody else has to review it. If you have written the document, somebody else has to review it, and it has to be approved by another person. Okay, so once it got approved, then only we have to move on to the next level, right? This is a strict rule here in this model. Your document has to be reviewed and it has to be approved, then we'll go to the next stage. So we got the BRD, and that BRD will be used like an input to the next stage, and the next stage documentation has to be finished. Once the documentation is finished, it has to be reviewed and approved. So there will be a term called freezing the document. Freezing the document means once that SRS or SRD has been freezed, you are not supposed to add any new requirements. The customer came in the last week, he gave me some requirements, and we have gone through the requirements and we implemented it, right? And maybe after 1 week, if the customer is coming back and, sir, no, 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 I gave you some bad requirement, could you please update this? In this model, that there is no such process. It will be freezed, the stage will be freezed, and nobody is entertained, and you should not change this requirement. It's a big problem in this model, but in the initial days when the software development is started, we went like this only. So we are not going to welcome the changes in the middle of the development process. Once the process is started, that's it. It has been freezed, right? Later on, after 10-15 years, the customers and even the development team also not happy with this model. What is the model? We are not allowing the changes to happen in the middle, right? Because end of the day, customer is paying a lot of money, and whatever he wanted to implement, he could able to implement that. Meaning he could able to change the plan. Finally, that is going to be his baby. He is going to use that application for his business. And you as a development team, you guys are not allowing him to change the requirements. Then how he will not be happy, right? So you guys are not supposed to do like that. But it was happened initially. It was the process. And if he is having any requirements, so first let us implement this. Maybe after 6 months we'll give you this. After 6 months we will add the new things. That's how the development happened initially, maybe 10-15 years back. But it was completely modified today in Agile. Agile is completely against this model. Okay, of course, people are using Agile nowadays, and it was good. It's going good. But anyways, you have to know this model is there sometime back, and people used it. And it's my job. I have to explain you. I'm doing it right. When I'm talking about Agile, I'll tell you clearly about Agile and what people did in Agile. Okay, and did in Agile and doing in Agile. Okay, Agile will always allow, or it will allow the or it will welcome the changes in the requirement. Okay, it will welcome the changes in the requirement. Fine. And moving on, then the fourth stage. So output of first stage will be acting like input to the second stage. So similar to that, every stage will happen in the same model, and the output of that stage will be freezed. And here we went to the coding stage, and here what the developer do is he will write his original code. Once the developer wrote his code, there is a term called unit testing, right? That unit testing also we call it as a white box testing or glass box testing. But what is this unit testing and what happens? You as a developer, if you wrote some code, this is your responsibility. You have to thoroughly test your code. And there is something called code coverage. There is something called a code coverage. and you have to give me 100% code coverage. Right. What do you mean by 100% code coverage, and what is this unit testing? Right. As you are saying that there will be a testing team who will be testing the application, then what this development team is going to do, right? Of course, the statement is correct, but the development team has to test the application at code level. You have written a login function. So at code level means I'll show this code. This is Eclipse, right? And here I have some Java code. Right. I have written code for logging. I have written a code for logout or compose a mail or do some fund transfer, right? Or book a ticket like that. If I have written some code, me as a developer, what I have to do is I have to run my code at least at data level. Maybe I don't have the UI at the moment, even though I don't have the UI, but at application level and data level, I have to check my business logic and I have to see is it really happening or not. Showing it onto the UI is my next step. But prior to that, once I implemented some code at code level, I have to test my application clearly. At code level, I have to test my application. That's my responsibility, right? So the testing that what I do at code level, I will call it as unit testing. Unit testing means certain number of, let me say some 10 lines of code, I will treat it as a unit. So if I have written 1,000 lines of code, so here there is a kind of measurement. Measurement means every 10 lines of code I'm treating it as a unit. Okay. So how many units of code that I have written, and each and every unit has been covered by me or not is very important. Meaning if you have written 1,000 lines of code and if you tested each and every line of your code, then your code coverage will be 100%. So initially when this software development has started, the developers are not focusing on this, meaning they're just doing a positive side of testing, meaning out of 100 lines of code, they're just going in a positive way, meaning if there is a if condition, they're just going to if only, they're not going to else condition, meaning only the code coverage will be 50%. So there is a statement generally, the developer will always think positively and he will, test only a certain part of the code, right? With that saying, what happens is mm, the developer is not focusing on the testing. As a reason, there is a big loss happening to the team. If you see this small, analysis that I have given, this is what it will happen. Okay, what is going to happen here? See, I just took three stages. Stage number one, the developer. See, in my x coordinate and y coordinates, on the x coordinate, I took the time, and the y coordinate, I'm representing the money with like the effort in terms of my human resources, effort with respect to money, right? How much amount is happening. If there is an issue which has been reported by me as a developer, and the cost that I'm going to pay will be very less. In case if something has been missed at the development stage and if it went to the testing team, right? If it went to the testing team, then how much time it will be, wasted, or how much time which we need to fix that issue is different. In case if an issue has been reported by the customer, how it will be, right? So you can analyze this, right? Uh, one moment, please. Just look at the diagram. I'll just take my charger.
Yes, I'm back.
Right. So if you look at this diagram, okay, it will explain you in case you as a developer, if you identify the issue at stage number one, okay, the ball will be still in your court. The ball will be still in your court means if there is something is going wrong, right? The code is still with you. You haven't pushed the code, okay, and you can verify this and you can fix it. So the time or the effort that you're going to take to fix it will be, as per my analysis, it will be E3 only. Okay, comparatively, you have E1, E2, E3. Okay, so the development team, they're not focusing much on, the unit testing activity. They're just writing the code and they're just doing a positive case. Like, if I have a login, enter your valid username, valid password, then it will be logged in. But a normal user will not do like that, right? He wanted to test it. Okay, he will enter wantedly. He will enter a wrong password, or without giving the password, he will click on the submit button. There are so many cases where without password also the login happened, meaning the developer is not testing the other case. He is not even thinking about the other side of the coin, and he is writing the code. He's always like, how can you log in without a password? Of course, I can. I will try, but the guys are, the development team is to thinking in only in that direction. So that created a big problem, and there are so many issues. That's the reason the second team called testing team has been introduced, right? So initially there is no concept of testing team. So by seeing all these, developments, people started recruiting the QA team, especially to test the software, right? Then what happened? What the testing team will do by the time when you are developing the application, he has written all the test cases like an end user, how an end user will think like. So when you're logging, log in with a valid username, valid password, and then enter only username, then try to log in. Enter only password, try to log in. Enter invalid username, try to log in. Enter invalid password, try to log in. Don't give anything, click on submit button. These are so many cases. Now, as a tester, as a QA team, you have to think all these things and you have to write. If you miss any one case in this, then that will goes to customer. This is also happened. So once the development team missed something and we got so many issues, then we recruited a QA team and they are testing it. So QA team means still the application is in our company premises, but at the stage of developer, the code is within his computer. But once it crosses the development team, it will be pushed into the source control and then it will goes to QA team, right? Then the QA team reported again. The process will be once the QA team reported an issue, they have to use any tool like Jira, anything. They will report the issue in that tool, and that issue will come to the development team. Maybe your team lead or somebody has to review that issue, and if that is really a defect, they have to agree that. Once they agreed it, then it will be assigned to one of the developer, and the developer has to know the issue. If the developer is not clear about the issue, again he will come to the tester who reported it, and he would get it clarified. Then he start fixing the issue. Once he fixed it, again he has to do the unit testing. Once he is good with the unit testing, then he will push it so that it will go to the QA team again. And the same QA person who reported the issue may not test it because he is in some other job. Then who is available? That tester will be taking that ticket, and he has to verify. And if he is not aware of that functionality, again he has to go to the person who developed it or who fixed it or who raised it. He has to get all the details, and then he has to test it. See how many people involved and how many stages are there and how much amount of time you're getting wasting, right? So by looking all these things, finally what I'm trying to make it clear here is unit testing is very very important in the team. So QA will come into the second phase, but before the QA team is going to enter into the system, people are more focusing on unit testing. As the developers are not doing thorough testing, we have to recruit a separate team called testing team, right? And they have to spend a lot of time. See, the negative testing and all, if as a developer, as the code is there with you, if you perform, if you spend some 5 minutes of time, you're saving a lot of time from of the QA team. QA team will focus on the functionality, right? Business is happening properly or not. Don't waste the time of QA in doing the negative testing. Enter password, without password, with password, invalid password, only alphabets, only numbers, special characters. A lot of things will be there, but silly things has to be tested by the development team. The code must be stable. If you give the unstable code to the QA team, lot of their valid time or valuable time will be wasted in doing this unnecessary testing. That's what the people are thinking about. And even though you recruited a QA team and they tested thoroughly, but they missed something, then what happens? It will goes to the customer, right? It will goes to the customer. If the customer reported it, already a lot of time has happened, and your development team might have dispersed. They have been joined into some other teams because you already pushed into the production, right? And then if a customer reported again, that has to come back to our team, and the development team, they have to review it, they have to accept it, and it has to be fixed. And once it got fixed, the development team has to test it, then assign it to QA team have to test it, and if the QA approved it, then again you need to have another production release, or you need to have something called a hot fix. Then you have to release it to the customer, and the customer has to see that, and he has to approve that. See how much time and efforts you are going to put. If you guys, your development team and your if QA team, if they miss that, then that will goes to the customer. If that goes to the customer, that will be called as a production issue. That will be called as a production bug. If the production bug comes, first who will be the main victim? QA team. Who tested this? Why it went to the production? Right, definitely they'll ask them. And of course, the development team will have less impact because only QA certified, then only it will goes to the production. Right, but as development team did not conduct a thorough unit testing, there's a lot of things that has to be tested by the QA team, and one or two things will be missed by the QA team. So by keeping this point in mind, what people did is they mandated the unit testing process. They termed it as test driven development. So the development activity, that what you are conducting, it has to be driven by testing, meaning you as a developer, you have to write uh, the number of test cases which will give the coverage of 100%, which will give the coverage of a 100%. If you have written 100 lines of code, each and every line that you have to cover, like for example, you have written a if condition, if, else if, else if, else if, like that you have written a code. uh, then when you're testing it, your logic should go into if condition first time, second time else if. Like let me say I have a A and B. If A is equal to B, I have to do something. If A is greater than B, I have to do something. If A is less than B, I have to do something. So when you're testing, first time you have to go A equal to B case. You have to see what is happening in that in that bracket. Then second time you have to go to A greater than B case. You have to check what is happening in that bracket. Third time you have to go to A less than B condition. There also you have to check what is happening, so that you covered all the cases. But generally what a developer will do is he will check A equal to B, right? If that is good, then he will push the code. But later it was mandated that you have to pass A equal to B. So let me say 20 and 20, and then A greater than B, 20 and 10, A less than B, 10 and 15. You have to send these three combinations and you have to test. Who developer has to test? So he has to write unit test cases first, and then he has to test his code. That is called TDD, test driven development. It was a mandatory thing nowadays. What is the term? TDD. TD is mandatory. So where are we? We are talking about software development life cycle. So looking at these stages and remembering these stages is not a big deal. But at each and every stage, if there is any important point, valid point for you, which is useful for you, I'm focusing on that. Otherwise, we can finish that in 5 minutes, right? That's not my goal. I have to give you as many details as possible at different stages. What will happen? Okay. So at coding and unit testing, you as a team, right, you're done with your coding activity and you are doing your TDD, test driven development. Once you conducted this, right, then you as a developer, you're done with the
your job. Now the next stage will be the testing team. Once you're done with your unit testing, uh, right, you have proved that your code coverage is 100%. There will be some techniques, guys. Code coverage can be calculated. There will be some tools called Sonar and all. That will be taken care by the development team. If you have written code and if I am reviewing your code and there is a tool called Sonar Cube, it will analyze and it will see how many unit test cases that you have written and your code coverage is 100% or not, right? It will definitely tell you the percentage. There will be a threshold value generally. If the threshold value, let me say, people will put around 80%, meaning if you have written 100 lines of code, at least 80 lines of code has to be verified by you. Meaning there will be some cases you may miss some 20 lines of code. That is a team agreement. As a team, you guys are accepted that at least 80% coverage is there in the unit testing, then only push the code, then only move the code for the testing. Otherwise, don't move the code for testing, right? There is a threshold value, and there are some automatic tools when you're trying to push your code. If your code coverage is not more than 80%, the tool itself, it will reject the build. Okay, meaning the code will not be pushed for the testing. That will be blocked at the uh, developer stage only. So why your unit testing is not above 80%? Then you have to again check your unit test cases. You have to write the corresponding uh, unit test cases, and you have to increase the number of unit test cases, and you have to cross that 80% border. If you cross the 80% border, then only your code will be approved and it will be pushed and it will go to the testing team. So the output of this coding and unit testing means thoroughly unit tested software will goes to the testing team. Guys, unit testing means that will happen at code level only. The development team will never take the development team will never take the application. They will do the testing at code level. See, the one that you are seeing on my screen is the code. On this code you have to do, this is a method called book bus ticket. So I'm giving the from city and to city. If you don't give the from city and if you try to book the ticket, what happens? If you don't give the to city and you try to book the ticket, what happens? If you don't give the date of journey and if you try to book the ticket, what happens? Like that, at code level only you have to do. So at code level, on the screen application, on the web application, you will not see anything, but at least this function will definitely will give you some outputs. Okay, that where the developer will do. All right. Okay, and the next point, we will continue with the diagram. Okay, uh, and then it came to the testing. Now the testing team has to start their journey. So here what the testing team has to do is they have to prepare something called a test plan. They have to prepare something called a test plan. What do you mean by test plan? Test plan is nothing but a company level document or team level document that what we prepare, that document will describe the overall activities that you're going to do as part of your testing, like what are we going to test, meaning as a testing team, before you start your journey you have to clearly mention everything and you have to get the approval from the management. Okay, in my test plan this is what I am going to do, like what I am going to test, what I am not going to test as part of this release, and how I am going to test it, how I am going to write my test cases, how I am going to prepare my test data, how I'm going to execute them, like that. I have to write clear details. What I'm going to do, you have to say that first. You should not do the things ad hoc and whatever that coming into your mind instantly. You have to clearly define them. You have to clearly describe everything that what you are going to do. That is called a test plan, right? So before the testing activity is going to start, what the testing team will do is first they will prepare a test plan. In that test plan, they will say how they are going to test and what they are going to test, and then when they are going to test, meaning timelines. So there are different modules. For each module, how much time will take, how many test cases we're going to write, how are we going to execute them, right? If a defect is coming, how are we going to report them, and what are the hardware resources required for us, what are the software resources required for us, human resources required for us. All the kind of things has to be documented clearly in the test plan, and based on the test plan only the recruitment will happen. So the person who will prepare the test plan, generally the high level people, maybe a test architect or a test manager, will prepare a test plan. In that test plan, based on the software requirement specification, he will mention we need 5 manual resources, we need 4 automation resources, and we need an automation lead, we need a manual lead. Like that, he will mention the required human resources and hardware resources. We need this many servers, we need this much amount of database requirement, right? Like that, he will mention the hardware resources and software resources. They're going for automation testing. They want to use some tool called QTP, or they wanted to use some tool called Selenium and Java. So for that, what are the software tools required? That is also has to be mentioned in the test plan. So once the development team done with their coding and they push the code for testing, the testing team will prepare the test plan. In the test plan, each and everything, it is a promise that you will give before you start testing. You have to write each and everything what you are going to do, and you have to do exactly the same, right? So that test plan will be prepared, and at high level I'll tell you what will be there in the test plan. Anyways, so our next topic will be test plan only, and I will show you a real-time test plan which is implemented. I will not give you any kind of theoretical stuff, but guys, whatever I'm telling you, that I'm taking it from the real-time implementations. This is a software requirement specification document that I have taken from my organization. Exactly for the test plan also, I have my own test plan, that what we prepared in our organization, and I will show you that test plan only. Okay, you need not go with any assumptions, right? Don't go with assumptions. I'll give you only live things and what has already happened, and you can go with the concrete information. Concrete information means this is what we did. You can confidently explain that in the interview. Okay, so otherwise, if you go with some kind of software, sorry, theoretical knowledge, and if you go there, and they may mislead you. Why not like this? So why only you're writing like this? Why not like this? Can't you go in that way, in this way? Of course you may go, but in my company or in my organization we did like this. That's how we can confidently answer it. Okay, so I will give you all the live documents. This document I'll share you. You can keep this document with you, and I have the test plan also with me, right? That what we use to prepare in our organization, and I'll share my test plan where it will give you a lot of confidence. Probably tomorrow or day after tomorrow, I'll show you this document. Probably tomorrow, right? This is my test plan, that what we prepared, right? By looking at this document, definitely you'll get a lot of confidence, because there is nothing, no assumption, nothing, and I'm not giving you any theoretical things, right? You will just read this document and it'll go, wherein you can explain it in very clear way. Okay. Anyways, we'll jump to that real test plan probably in the next session or after the other day after tomorrow, because still meanwhile we have to finish this development lifecycle model, and we have something else called SDLC. As part of SDLC, I'll show you test plan. Right. So what I'm saying, we started our journey in the sense testing team journey, right? Then the testing team, right? They have started their testing, and here they will do functional testing and performance testing. At the moment, I'll give at high level. Okay, and when a situation comes, I'll give you all the definitions. What exactly functional testing is, what exactly performance testing is, like that. Okay, so here once you guys are done with your test plan preparation, in the test plan you clearly mention what are the different types of testings that you're going to perform. You may conduct your functional testing and you may conduct performance testing. What is functional testing and what is performance testing, right? Suppose if you have any web application like Gmail or something, and if you're doing one moment. Come on. Right. So take any application like Gmail or something else, or let me take some other application. You will see there. Hmm. I'm taking an application like this, APS RTC, let me say, for example, right? So if I give some, from city and to city, and if I select the date of journey and if I click on the check availability, so that thing that what I'm doing here is called a functionality testing, right? Or performance also will be there, meaning at a time if a number of people are logged into the system, n number of people means some thousand people, 2000 people, if they're trying to do something on the application, then that we call it as a and how it is behaving, we have to analyze it, meaning how much time it is taking to give the response. If one person logged in within my milliseconds, it may give the response, but if many people logged in, then how much time it is taking to give the response, right? Kind of analysis you have to do. That thing that what you're doing is called performance testing. So now, as a team, we will conduct functional testing and performance testing. Meanwhile, we have tried to functional test cases and performance test cases. Those has to be reviewed and they have to be approved. And then we'll move on to other stage called integration testing. Integration testing means, let me say, I have multiple modules. If you're implementing Gmail as an application, Gmail will have a inbox, sent items, trash, like that different modules will be there. So now maybe first you'll test the individual modules, but after you're done with testing the individual modules, you have to go for uh, connectivity across the modules. Like if I compose a send a mail, it will goes to sent items, right? If I delete a mail, it will goes to trash, meaning inbox and trash is a interconnection. Inbox and send items is having an interconnection. So that you have to test, which we call it as integration testing, right? And there are different techniques and where you will be following and you will be testing all the modules. So kind of testing different modules, and there will be some cases where two modules are implemented and one module is not implemented, right? The top module is implemented, the bottom modules are not implemented, or the bottom modules are implemented, the top module is not yet implemented. Like that, there will be different scenarios. So for the QA team, there are some strategies how to test. If the top module is not implemented, how to do the testing. If the middle module is not implemented, how to do the testing. So there are something called integration testing techniques that the team will follow. So anyways, we will use those techniques and we will do the integration testing. End of the day, all the modules together, they have to work. So once you're done with system test, integration testing, will go system testing. System means as a whole, how your application is doing. As a whole, how your application is performing. As a whole, how your application is performing means you have the Gmail application. And if you are sending an email from Gmail to Gmail, there will not be any problem. For example, if you're sending a mail from Gmail to Yahoo, how it happens, or Gmail to Hotmail, how it is happening, right? Gmail to some Outlook, how it is happening. So across other systems, how our system is behaving. As a whole, as a system, if you are testing the application, we call it as system testing, right? So as part of my software development life cycle, once the software is got developed, then it comes to QA team. QA team will prepare the test plan. As per the test plan, he will write the test design, he will write the test cases, right? He will be ready with testing, and once he will start testing, he will test the application functionally and performance also he will do. And first level, he will do individual module testing, and then he will go for integration testing. Integration testing means testing all the integration among the modules. So if I have multiple modules, how can we test all the modules? Once he is done with the integration, then he will move on to the system, right? But when he is doing at each and every stage, first he need to prepare the test cases, then only he has to perform the testing. Then they have to be reviewed and they have to freeze it, then only they have to conduct their testing. Once they are done with system testing, they will do something called user acceptance testing. What do you mean by user acceptance testing? The customer has to accept, right? Otherwise there is no point in developing the software. So in the user acceptance testing, right, First thing, there is something called alpha testing and beta testing. So in the alpha testing, generally in the olden days, the process will be, we will invite the customer to our place, and we will open the business requirement specification given by the customer. And what we do is, we will read the business requirements one by one, and we will demonstrate the application to the customer. If the customer is really happy, that's it. We will release the software to the customer, right? So we will release the software to the customer. So we have a stage called the user acceptance testing stage. In that, first we will conduct alpha. We will invite the customer to our place, and we will demonstrate the application to the customer. We will demonstrate application to the customer as per the business requirement specification that he has given. Sir, this is the what you required, and this is what you requested for, and this is what we implemented. See, I'm doing here. I'm logging with the valid username and password. I'm logging with the mobile number and UTP OTP. I'm logging with the Facebook account. I'm logging with the Google account. So is it happening or not? Please check and tell me. Right? So that's how we will show him. Once he is satisfied, very good. Right. Later on, what happened is, once you release the software to the customer, when the customer goes to his company, his premises, and when he is using the same application on his computer, it is not working properly. The application is doing very good in our computers because that is our development environment, and we are doing it from many days. And if there are any problems, we solved them, we fixed them, and we made the system as stable, and we are using it. But all of a sudden, if you give the software to the customer computer may not have all the plugins and all what are you installed at your company, because you are a developer or a QA, and you know what are required, and you guys installed all of them into your computers. Your systems are stable systems, and definitely it will work here in your computers. But when you go to the customer place, customer computer may not have all the requirements, right? So one or two might be missing. Then that is, he's not a technical guy, right? He's an innocent guy. He don't know anything about software. So that when he's trying to use the application on his computer, it will not work. Then definitely he will raise a complaint on you, saying that what is this thing? It's not working on my computer, and what it he will raise a voice, right? And later on, what happened is, we started doing something called beta testing at client location. So what we do is, we will send our representative who is an expert in installing the application and all, doing the setup. He will go to the client location, and he will set up their environment as per the requirements, and he will demonstrate the application again on client environment. It has to work there also. If you are doing again the testing at the client premises, right, we are calling it as beta testing. So once the beta testing is also good, we'll take an approval, or a hard-coded approval on on a paper. We'll take the approval from the customer saying that it is working on the client environment. Finally, we are done with user acceptance testing. We did both alpha and beta testing. Finally, the application is ready for release, and we will deploy the code or into the production environments of the client, or will give the software completely to the client, and client will start using it. That we call it as a release. And definitely there will be a window called maintenance window. Maybe 6 months we are giving a free maintenance. If they are running into some issues, we are here to solve. So in the contract, we will maintain that. Okay, if the contract is a 6 months window maintenance, of course we'll do that. Once the maintenance window is done, then he has to pay for us. Maybe that depends on the contract that we are going to execute, and we will do it. So by following these many stages, first day we got the requirement, and the last day we are releasing the software to the customer. So all the stages, including, we are calling it as a software development life cycle model. Right. In this model, the very basic concern is, if you cross one stage, if the phrase it has been freezed, you can't go back to the previous stage, and you have to come to the next stage only, right? If you see this model, it is looking like a staircase, right? If you throw a glass of water from the top one, it will definitely comes to the bottom one. There is no chance of going in a reverse direction, right? Water, it can't travel in the upward direction. It will always come into the downward direction. So as you are looking this particular model as a staircase, and it is looking like a waterfall, people are calling it as a waterfall model. Waterfall model. This is a software development life cycle, but it's a waterfall model, and it is a sequential model. Sequential means one after the other. BRD and then SRD and then HLD, LLD, and then coding, unit testing, and then your functional testing, integration, system, user acceptance, finally release, right? It was one stage after the other stage, so where we are calling it as a sequential software development life cycle. Sequential software development life cycle, right? As it is looking like a waterfall, people are calling it as waterfall model, right? And here in this model we have some challenges, right? And to avoid all those challenges, we went to some other model called V model, right? Tomorrow when we are joining, I'll talk about the V model, and then we'll go to software testing life cycle. Okay, on top of this, if you guys are having any questions, please feel free to ask me, right? Initially, as I'm talking about manual testing, I have to definitely give you some theoretical things, because manual testing, your software development life cycle and all, you have to understand these things. So initially I have to teach you some kind of manual and theory part. It may be bored for you guys, but there is no alternate. I have to explain you things, right? And if you have any questions, and if you're anything, please raise your voice and we can discuss, right? Once I started showing you the real test plan, live test plan, and then that will be interesting. Probably from tomorrow we'll do that. Once we started Java and Selenium, and then you'll not have time. At the moment you are sitting and I'm talking, but once we started Java, there will be a lot of stuff for you where you can practice. Right? Even this is also important. A lot of interview questions will come from this discussion, that what we had today. Definitely, for sure. What is TTD? What is code coverage? These kind of things, right? And if you have any questions, please ask me. Otherwise, we will stop here for today, and tomorrow we'll go for the next topic. There is something called waterfall model. Sorry, V model. We'll talk about V model.
Hello.
Yeah, please.
Sir, I'm a 2016 guy.
Okay, please.
Hello.
Yeah,
How much should I keep experience, and what project should I keep in my resume?
it's a too early question, right? So what are you going to do? Meaning, how many years of experience you're going to put up?
I'm going to put 4 years experience.
So if you're going to put up 4 years of experience, see guys, you can't separate manual testing and automation testing. Without testing the software manually, nobody will automate that, right? So manual testing, automation testing cannot be separated. The thing might be something like this: you did not get an opportunity to do some automation testing, but definitely manual testing will be there. If you have 4 years of experience, your 4 years of experience will contain manual testing. In addition to that, you did some automation testing, right? So 4 years of manual testing, and maybe in the last 1 year or 2 year I started automation testing. They gave me some kind of training, and I involved into automation testing as well. So you can say complete 4 years I'm into manual, and last 1 year or 2 years I'm into automation. Like that, you have to put up your profile. You can't say 2 years manual, 2 years automation. 4 years manual will be there. As long as the software is there in the industry, manual testing will be there forever. Unless a human is not going to test the software, it will never be tested by an automation tool directly. Once the application is set to be stable, then we have to start automation. Automation is for second round, not for the first round. First round human has to do, second round, third round, fourth round automation tool has to do, right? So like this, you please put up your profile. Suman. Testing versus development, which has more job? Okay, that's it. Both things are critical. If QA is not there, software is not going to be released, right? So then we can say that development is more, QA is more. Both are having equal importance. And if you have some automation knowledge, then your profile will have more weightage. Only having manual knowledge, it will be nowadays people are not encouraging only manual testers, manual with automation, right? You're having uh, more weightage, and a lot of opportunities are there with people having automation, at least with Selenium and Java, because Java will give some development knowledge as well. All right. Okay, team. We will meet tomorrow at the same time, and we'll continue with the remaining part. Definitely, this is enough. Guys. He said 2021 passed out, and I need a job. Yep. You can try like a fresher, and especially if you have some automation testing knowledge, definitely it will help you. Core Java is important for you, who is a 2021 passed out, right? Definitely they'll give you some kind of written test. Okay. And if you have to cross that, you should have some core Java knowledge. Learning Java is like learning driving. If you know driving, you can drive any vehicle. So for sure, if you have some core Java knowledge, you can at least attend those written tests conducted by the teams. Okay, this is more than enough. With this knowledge, you can go and you can give your interviews. Right. My only request is please focus and get ready to learn some Java. I'll give you some kind of exercise where you try to answer them so that you can attend some written tests. Right, Suman? All right. So I hope I answered all your questions. We'll meet tomorrow.